All right, got a really cool video for you today. We are out here on Table Rock Lake, and as you guys can tell, it is cold. We got snow on the ground, we got ice on the roads, but 99% of the time that means bass are biting. So we're gonna go out here and probably try to catch them in like 70+ foot of water. They get out really deep, and we're gonna go throw some Damiki rigs and some deep lures to go catch some of these bass.
Contemplating all of my goals. Look, will I fold or will I chase them? I got adversity, two options. I can handle it purposefully, or I can let it murder me. But sign up for war, point out the target, show me the giants. Hold your applause, just getting started, sitting the lions.
This guy might actually do it because he's swimming up to the boat. Just like that. Look at this spot. Little fat boy, but so we're not around any bait right now, but that fish was just roaming out there by himself, and that's how a lot of the, I feel like the bigger fish on most lakes around the country, a lot of them are just kind of floating around and sitting up high in the water column. But if you can get around a bait ball, that's where you can catch a bunch of them. So that's what we're going to keep on looking for. We probably casted at, I don't know, I'd say 7 to 10 fish, and we caught that one. Obviously it wasn't a big one, but if you keep on going around, we will probably catch a few more, especially if we can, like I said, find bait or maybe a group of them, because whenever you get around a group of them, they get some competition in them, and they're like, well, I want to get that bait first, so they're going to run up there and grab it. So hopefully we can find something like that. I was down at Sam Rayburn prior to this, and the fish were a lot shallower. And a lot of guys throw different leader lengths, pound test, and why I brought up Sam Rayburn is I was fishing a lot shallower, and I was able to get away with 10 to 12 pound leader. Now that we're at Table Rock and we're fishing a little bit deeper, I'm going to switch up to a 6 pound leader, and what that does is it takes that line diameter and makes it a lot smaller whenever you go down to 6, which in turn will make your bait fall a lot faster. So we're gonna put some 6 pound on here and try that so we can get down to these fish and be a little bit more efficient. I would tell you guys what knot I tie, but I'll be completely honest about it. I have no clue what it is. I wrap it, I do a loop with the fluorocarbon, go through, wrap it 5 or 6 times, and then wrap it back around the other way and stick it back through that loop. I learned it a long time ago, and a lot of guys tie the FG knot and have a bunch of fancy knots, and I just use what works. And a lot of the time whenever if I do break off, it's not at the knot, so that's what you want. Obviously you don't want to break off, but not breaking off at the knot is key. There we go. Not a big one, but he'd be a keeper in a tournament. Not a big one, but that's just same deal, a little floater out there in the middle of nowhere, and just slowly working it up and away. So we're gonna keep on going, and we just need to find a dang big one, you know? Whenever I'm trying to like find these floaters, they can literally be anywhere, but typically they're gonna be where the bait's at. So you can see a deep bait ball right here, down here in 90 foot of water. There's no bass on it, but there is some bait in this area. But what happens is those fish that are floating up high are looking for bait balls that are up high, and they're actively feeding. So it's a really good way to try to pick off some easy fish. There's another high floater, and you can kind of see his tail separation, so hopefully this guy might be a little bit better than better size. I think he's a little bit better. It's a smallmouth. Look at that. Heck yeah. This is awesome. Good little smallmouth. Another tournament sized keeper fish. So there's two different plastics that I really like to throw when I'm doing this style of fishing, or even bait ball or high floaters, and that is a scope shad and a shad shapeworm. So a scope shad has a lot thicker profile, and what I'm throwing today is a shad shapeworm. And as you can tell, it is very, very clean, simple. There's not a thick body to it. And the reason why I like throwing this is because when I'm trying to sink it so deep, it's more streamlined, it falls faster. Versus if I know those fish are in like 10 foot or less, that's when I'll go to that scope shad, where it's easier for it to sit a little bit higher and float a little slower. So there's one really up high here. Oh, and the other big one's right there. He disappeared on me there for a second. He swam over to the left. There we go. Big old largemouth. Come on, buddy. And just like that. Look at this fish. Look at that tail. That is so cool. That is one healthy fish. So just like that, targeted that fish, and it's crazy how far these fish can see other fish when they're starting to eat bait because of that competition. And this fish was a prime example of that. He saw that smallmouth or spotted bass that was sitting up high, eating my bait, but he didn't want to eat it. So this fish slowly came up off the bottom, was going towards it. I caught him in between, and that's what this guy came from. Gosh, this is... So another question that we get a lot is, how can you identify bass versus crappie versus white bass, stripers, catfish? And it's actually fairly simple. So it's all about how the fish are staged and positioned in the water, and then also the return, what they have on Livescope. So bass, they have a dense return, but it's not as hard as a carp. So carp scales are super, super dense. When you pan and you start moving around and it's like super, super glowy and it looks like a huge dot, more than likely it's not a bass. Sometimes when you go down to Texas and the 10-pound bass it is, but 99% of the time that's a carp or a buffalo or something like that. Crappie, lots smaller dots, and they will normally be in groups of 5, 10, or 30, and they will be kind of in a big ball. Bass, although you can kind of see on these how the fish are dense, and they are definitely like hard return, but they're also not super, super big. And that's how I tell the difference between bass. But white bass, for instance, have a lot of, normally there's a lot of them together, and you can tell like that. But with right now, you can see these largemouth and spots and smallmouth that we're fishing for are separated, and he's coming up hard. Oh, he didn't want it. They rudely interrupted me. Little spotted dog. But largemouth and spots and basically bass, black bass, will kind of set up like that, either in a semi-dense line when they're traveling, or if there's bait around, or if they're underneath your boat, they'll kind of get spread out and look like that on Livescope. They're all staring at my prop. Ooh, there's a floater up high though. There's just fish everywhere. Got him. Another good one. Woo! Have I ever told you guys that I love bass fishing? Because golly, this is fun. Ooh, too tight. And just like that. So, another solid table rock bass. Gosh. So having the right rod and reel setup for Damiki rig fishing is very important. I've seen guys use too lighter rods, too heavier rods, too long, too short, and this is what I have found to be the best. So this is the 6'9" medium by Phoenix Rods in the feather lineup, and I prefer a shorter rod than most guys, because a lot of guys throw like 7'1", 7'2", 7'3s. I want to be very, very accurate when I'm casting, because a lot of these fish are within 60 foot, and I want to be able to snipe those fish very, very easily. And secondly, a medium is very, very important. Having that rod being able to load up throughout the entire front tip is very important, because these hooks that we're throwing are fairly light wire, so you just kind of want to lean into them. You're not trying to jack them. You're typically throwing, you know, 6 to 10 pound tests, so it's not like you can really set the hook really hard. So that's very important to have a very moderate rod.